OpenAI's own system flagged a user as a potential mass casualty threat. The company was warned 3 times, it did nothing. Now it's facing a lawsuit, and the details are damning. Today we have 4 stories worth your attention. Anthropic temporarily banned the developer behind OpenClaw following a pricing dispute, and the timing raises real questions. A stalking victim is suing OpenAI, alleging ChatGPT amplified her abuser's delusions even after explicit warnings. An Iranian content group is going viral with AI-generated Lego videos reframing U.S. military narratives, and TechCrunch is taking its startup battlefield to Tokyo for a major AI and robotics showcase. Let's get into it. Anthropic temporarily banned the developer behind OpenClaw, a third-party client built on top of Claude, from accessing its API. The ban came just days after Anthropic changed its pricing structure for OpenClaw users, a move that already disrupted the tool's user base. Here's why this matters. OpenClaw isn't some fringe project. It built a meaningful user base specifically because it offered a different interface for interacting with Claude. More flexibility, different UX, the kind of thing power users gravitate toward. When Anthropic changed the pricing terms, it effectively undercut the product's value proposition. And then the ban followed. Now Anthropic hasn't made a detailed public statement about why the ban was issued. That silence is notable. Was this a terms of service violation? A business conflict dressed up as a policy enforcement? We don't know yet. What we do know is that this is a recurring tension in the AI platform economy. Developers build on top of foundation model APIs, invest real time and money, and then find themselves at the mercy of the underlying provider's pricing and policy decisions. It's the same dynamic we've seen play out in app stores, social media APIs, and cloud platforms for years. AI is not immune. For developers considering building on Claude or any other model API right now, this is a case study worth watching closely. A woman is suing OpenAI, alleging that ChatGPT actively reinforced the delusional thinking of the man who stalked and harassed her, and that OpenAI ignored multiple warnings that this user was dangerous, including one from its own internal mass-casualty flagging system. Read that again. OpenAI's own system flagged this user. That flag was apparently not acted upon. The alleged stalking continued. The lawsuit claims the victim warned OpenAI directly on 3 separate occasions that this individual was using ChatGPT in ways that were escalating his obsessive and threatening behavior. The complaint alleges those warnings were dismissed or ignored entirely. This is legally and ethically significant for several reasons. First, it tests whether AI companies can be held liable, not just for what their models say, but for how they respond or fail to respond to user safety reports. Second, it raises the question of what internal safety systems are actually doing if a mass casualty flag doesn't trigger meaningful intervention. Third, it puts pressure on the entire industry to define what duty of care looks like when your product is being weaponized by one person against another. OpenAI has not yet publicly responded to the suit in detail, but this case is likely to become a landmark reference point in AI liability law. Watch it closely. An Iranian content group called Explosive Media has been producing AI-generated Lego videos that retell recent geopolitical events, and they're going massively viral. The specific focus, the US-Iran conflict, including an incident where an American fighter jet was downed behind Iranian borders. While the US government has framed the story as a success, Explosive Media's videos tell a very different version, and millions of people are watching them. This is a genuinely new kind of information warfare, and it's worth unpacking why it works. Lego is disarming. It's playful, familiar, non-threatening. Wrapping geopolitical propaganda in that aesthetic lowers the viewer's critical defenses. Add AI-generated visuals that can be produced quickly and cheaply, and you have a content machine that can respond to breaking news faster than traditional media, and reach audiences that traditional media never could. The creators themselves credit their virality to having heart, a sense of emotional authenticity in how they frame their narratives. That's not an accident. It's a production strategy. This isn't just an Iran story. It's a preview of how AI-generated content will be used by state and non-state actors to shape public perception of global events at scale. The tools are cheap, the reach is enormous, and the aesthetic is designed to feel human. That combination should concern anyone thinking seriously about the information environment we're heading into. TechCrunch is bringing its startup battlefield competition to Tokyo as part of SusHi Tech 2026, a major technology event organized around 4 domains: AI, robotics, resilience, and entertainment. The lineup is legitimately interesting. Expect live demos of humanoid robots, deep dives into autonomous driving software, sessions on cyber defense and climate tech, and discussions about how AI is reshaping Japan's music and anime industries, 2 sectors where Japan has enormous global cultural reach. Why does this matter for an AI audience? A few reasons. First, Japan has been quietly aggressive in its AI and robotics investment, and events like this signal that Tokyo wants to be a serious node in the global AI ecosystem, not just a consumer of it. Second, the entertainment angle is underreported. Japan's anime and music industries are massive, globally influential, and facing the same AI disruption questions as Hollywood, but with different cultural and legal frameworks around intellectual property. Third, humanoid robotics is entering a phase where live public demos are becoming a meaningful benchmark. When companies are confident enough to demo in front of a live audience, it tells you something about where the technology actually is. This isn't just a conference announcement. It's a signal about where serious AI and robotics development is happening outside the US-China axis. The brief housekeeping note for anyone in the AI and tech startup world. TechCrunch Disrupt 2026 passes are in their final discount window, up to $500 off, ending tonight at midnight Pacific. Disrupt is one of the few conferences where the signal-to-noise ratio is actually worth your time. It's where early-stage AI companies get their first real public exposure, where investors are actively scouting, and where the startup battlefield competition has historically surfaced companies that went on to become category leaders. If you're building in the AI space, attending or sending a team member isn't just a networking play, it's competitive intelligence. You get a read on what's being funded, what problems founders are actually trying to solve, and which narratives the investor community is buying right now. We're not here to sell you a conference ticket. But if Disrupt is on your radar and you've been sitting on the decision, the pricing window is closing tonight. That's the news. What you do with it is up to you. Back to the stories that actually move the needle. Step back from today's individual stories and a pattern becomes hard to ignore. The AI industry is in a sustained accountability crisis, and it's coming from multiple directions simultaneously. On one end, you have the OpenAI lawsuit, a case that doesn't just allege harm, but alleges that the company's own internal safety systems identified a threat and nothing happened. That's not a gap in the technology. That's a gap in the organizational response to the technology. Those are very different problems, and the second one is harder to fix with a model update. On the other end, you have Anthropic and the OpenClaw ban. A quieter story, but structurally important. The AI platform economy is maturing fast, and as it does, the power asymmetry between foundation model providers and the developers who build on top of them is becoming more visible and more consequential. Developers are realizing that building on someone else's API is building on someone else's terms, and those terms can change. And then there's the Lego video story, which sits in a different category but connects to the same underlying question: who is responsible for what AI enables? Explosive Media is using off-the-shelf AI tools to produce geopolitical content at scale. No single company is responsible for that. But the cumulative effect on the information environment is real. What today's stories collectively tell us is that the AI industry's next major challenge isn't capability, it's governance. Not just government regulation, but internal governance. How companies respond to their own safety flags, how they treat the developers who depend on them, and how they think about the downstream uses of the tools they've built. Those questions are no longer theoretical, they're showing up in courtrooms. That's the rundown for April 10th. Here's the question I want to leave you with. If OpenAI's own system flagged a user as a potential mass-casualty risk and no meaningful action followed, what does that tell you about how seriously these companies are actually taking their own safety infrastructure? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want this level of analysis on AI news every single day, hit subscribe. We're here every day cutting through the noise so you don't have to.